How many times have you found yourself worrying, trying to control everything around you, only to feel that the burden gets heavier each day? Maybe you feel like your prayers are not being heard, or that the solution never arrives. The truth is, many of us live trapped in a cycle of worries, not realizing that liberation is just a step away, fully trusting in God. But is it possible to live without so much anxiety? Yes, it is possible. In this video, you will discover how faith can completely transform your way of facing challenges, bringing inner peace that only God can provide. If you really want to understand how to stop fighting alone against worries and free yourself from the weight of anxiety, stay until the end of this video. I will share powerful teachings and biblical truths that will help you trust more in the divine plan and live a worry-free life. And if you need help on your journey, leave your prayer request in the comments. We are here to pray for you. Take the opportunity to help spread this message by subscribing to the channel and leaving your like. Let's share this reflection with as many people as possible. Every like, every comment, and every share makes a difference and helps bring this message of faith and tranquility to those who need it most. Don't miss the opportunity to help someone who might be going through the same difficulties as you. Stop worrying and trust in God. Worrying can be compared to carrying a weight that doesn't belong to us. When someone insists on worrying about the future, they are actually questioning God's perfect plan for their life. It is as if the person is silently saying they don't believe God is in control. Many believe that their daily worries are inevitable, but what they don't realize is that these anxieties are a sign that trust in God is being set aside. For those who truly desire to experience a life of faith and tranquility, the first step is simple but powerful. Abandon worry. This requires a shift in mindset, in beliefs, and a genuine surrender to divine hands. Giving worries to God is not a passive process, but an active one. A good analogy is to imagine someone trying to row against a current. The effort they exert is immense, but the results are minimal. Now think about what happens when they finally decide to use a motor to propel the boat. Everything flows with much less effort. Similarly, life becomes lighter when the person decides to trust in God, for He becomes the engine that carries us forward. The moment we stop fighting against our worries, we make room for God to take control. If we stop to reflect, many of the problems we face could have been avoided if we simply trusted that God knows what is best for us. Restlessness leads to rushed and often disastrous decisions. Imagine someone, out of fear of losing a job opportunity, accepts a job without feeling peace in their heart. Later, that same person realizes that if they had waited a bit longer, a better opportunity would have arisen. Trusting in God means allowing His timing to unfold, and He never fails. True inner peace is only achieved when a person understands that their future is secure in divine hands. Moreover, the very act of worrying brings physical and emotional consequences. Studies show that constant anxiety affects the body, potentially causing chronic diseases. Therefore, when someone worries, not only does their soul suffer, but their body suffers as well. Think of a machine running at high speed all the time. Eventually, it breaks down. In the same way, the human body was not made to carry so much emotional weight. When someone allows themselves to trust in God, it's like giving their heart and mind a much-needed rest. Often, people believe that giving their worries to God is a form of inactivity, but this is far from the truth. Letting go of worry does not mean being passive, but rather understanding that while God is working on the perfect plan, we must do our part with wisdom. If someone is facing a financial challenge, for example, it's not just about praying and waiting for money to fall from the sky. It's about praying, trusting, and following practical actions like managing resources well, seeking new opportunities, and trusting that, at the right time, God will provide. This balance between faith and action is key to a fulfilling life. Biblical guidance on worry. The Bible is clear in teaching us how to deal with worries. One of the most powerful examples is found in Matthew 6, verses 25 to 27, where Jesus invites us to observe the birds. They do not plant, harvest, or store in barns, yet God feeds them. This passage is a strong reminder that if the Creator cares for such simple creatures, how much more will He care for us, who are made in His image? The problem with worrying is that we end up doubting this divine provision. When we look at the world around us and recognize God's care in every detail, we are called to trust more fully in His plan and less in our own ability. Along these lines, Jesus also asks, "Can any one of you by worrying add a single hour to your life?" This rhetorical question makes us reflect on the negative impact of worry. It brings no solutions, only wear and tear. Many times, we lose sleep and inner peace worrying about situations we cannot control. The biblical guidance is clear. Worrying is a practice that must be abandoned. Trusting in God allows us to live a lighter life without carrying the unnecessary burden of anxiety. To illustrate, imagine a person who spends days worried about their finances. Instead of seeking a practical solution or handing this worry over to God, they become paralyzed by fear. Over time, this worry grows, affecting their emotional health and even their relationships. If this person followed the biblical advice of trusting in God and not worrying, they could instead dedicate that time and energy to practical solutions and, most importantly, to prayer, knowing that God will provide at the right time. This is the beauty of a life surrendered to faith. In understanding the biblical teaching, it is essential to recognize that worry prevents us from fully living in the present. When we become anxious about the future or about things we cannot control, we miss out on the blessings happening now. How many times have people missed precious moments with their families, distracted by problems that haven't even happened yet? Matthew 6, verse 34 reinforces this idea, "Therefore do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself." God desires that we live fully in the present, trusting that the future is in His hands. Another way to apply this teaching is through daily practices of gratitude. Instead of focusing on what might go wrong, the biblical text encourages us to remember what has already gone right and how God has already blessed us. If someone is worried about the future of their job, for example, an effective practice is to list the blessings they've already received in their professional life and thank God for them. This shift in focus not only soothes the mind but also strengthens trust in God and calms the heart. Gratitude is a powerful tool for overcoming anxieties and reinforcing faith. Finally, it is important to highlight that Jesus' teaching in Matthew is not a light suggestion but a profound call to trust. He is not just asking us to try to trust in God but to live this trust in every detail of our lives. When someone truly understands this biblical guidance, they begin to realize that a worry-free life is not an unattainable utopia but a path available to all who choose to surrender their anxieties to God. And this is the central point, trusting in the divine plan and following the path to peace. Harmful effects of worry. Worry, when constant, acts like a shadow that consumes a person's inner peace. Those who are always worried often do not realize how much this practice affects their emotions and even their decisions. When the mind is dominated by worry, the body reacts with stress and anxiety, which can lead to health problems like high blood pressure and sleep disorders. Thus, the person ends up entering a cycle where worry creates more stress, and stress generates more worry. It is important to understand that this mental state can be transformed when the person chooses to trust in God and surrender their worries into His hands. Besides the physical damage, worry also erodes mental peace. It is common for worried people to become unable to focus on their daily tasks because their mind is always distracted by the possible negative scenarios they imagine. This type of thinking, known as rumination, ends up feeding more anxiety. Imagine someone who spends the day worried about financial problems. Instead of seeking practical solutions or trusting that God will provide, this person sinks into catastrophic thoughts that most of the time never materialize. The consequence of this is enormous emotional wear, which could be avoided with the practice of faith and surrender. Life also loses quality when worry dominates. When someone is always worried, their ability to enjoy present moments is seriously impaired. For example, a person may be at a family gathering, but their mind is trapped in thoughts about future problems or situations they cannot control. In this way, they miss precious moments that could be bringing joy and emotional strength. Living a life without worries does not mean ignoring problems, but trusting that God is in control and that the solution will come at the right time. This is the true relief from worries. Another serious consequence of worry is social isolation. Many times, those who are constantly anxious withdraw from friends and family because they feel overwhelmed by worries and think they cannot share their burdens with others. This isolation can lead to depression and a sense of loneliness. However, by surrendering these worries to God, the person finds relief and a new disposition to open up to those around them. Faith provides a sense of mental liberation, allowing the person to reconnect with those who love and can help them overcome challenges. Moreover, worry is a waste of time. The time someone spends worrying is time that could be used to act, pray, or seek solutions. However, many people feel paralyzed by anxiety and miss opportunities that could improve their lives. Imagine someone who, out of fear of an uncertain future, avoids making an important decision like changing jobs or investing in a new project. This person, out of fear, ends up missing the chance to see their life transformed. When we choose to trust in the divine plan, we allow action to replace the inertia caused by worry. Finally, it is essential to understand that worry not only harms the body and mind but also affects the soul. Faith weakens when we allow anxiety to take control. When someone lives constantly worried, they are, in a way, placing more trust in their own fears than in God's plan. However, by surrendering their anxieties into God's hands, the person experiences the mental liberation and inner peace they so desire. And this surrender allows them to follow the path to peace, overcoming the anxieties that once paralyzed them. Prayer as a solution. Prayer is one of the most powerful tools a person can use to deal with life's worries. When someone prays, they are literally handing their burdens into God's hands. It is a moment of deep connection between the human being and the Creator, where the person can express their anxieties, fears, and uncertainties. By praying, the person is acknowledging that there is something greater than themselves, something that can bring relief and answers, even when everything seems without solution. Prayer not only calms the heart but also strengthens faith because it reminds us that God is always in control, regardless of the circumstances. In addition to being a channel of communication with God, prayer also has a transformative effect on the mind and body. Studies have shown that people who maintain a constant prayer life tend to be calmer and have a greater sense of inner peace. This happens because prayer allows us to externalize our worries instead of internalizing them and letting them consume us. Imagine someone facing a difficult financial situation. Instead of sinking into negative thoughts, this person can pray for guidance and strength to move forward. By doing so, they find relief from worries and begin to trust more in the divine plan. Another important point about prayer is that it helps us shift our focus. Many times, we become so fixated on our worries that we lose sight of the blessings we have already received. Prayer reminds us to be grateful and to trust that if God has cared for us until now, He will continue to do so. When someone prays and gives thanks for what they already have, even in the midst of difficulties, this practice strengthens faith and creates a positive cycle of trust in God. Thus, the person stops looking at their problems with despair and begins to see them as opportunities for spiritual growth. Prayer is also an invitation to action. Some people may think that praying is just a way of waiting for something to happen, but in reality, prayer motivates us to act. When someone prays for wisdom, for example, they often receive insights or ideas on what they can do to change a situation. Faith without works is dead, and prayer helps us align our actions with God's will. If someone is praying for a solution to a work problem, that prayer can be the starting point for making wise decisions and acting with courage, always trusting that God is guiding the way. For those who face constant anxieties, prayer can be a daily refuge. Instead of allowing worries to take over their mind, the person can establish moments of prayer throughout the day, repeatedly handing their anxieties over to God. This constant practice transforms the heart and mind, bringing a worry-free life. A good practical example would be establishing a prayer routine in the morning before starting daily tasks and at night before sleeping. These moments of connection with God help renew faith and maintain inner peace, regardless of external circumstances. Lastly, prayer allows us to realize that we are not alone. When someone prays, they enter a dimension of faith where they recognize that God is their companion in all battles. This brings immeasurable comfort, especially in moments of uncertainty and loneliness. Prayer not only connects us to God but also reminds us that He is always present, even in the most difficult situations. By cultivating this practice of prayer, a person discovers that faith and tranquility go hand in hand and that trusting in the divine plan is the key to overcoming anxieties and finding the true path to peace. Lewis's perspective. Lewis, in his works, offers a profound view on the human dependence on God and how essential this is for a full and worry-free life. In his book, Mere Christianity, he explains how we were created to lean on God and that every attempt to live independently from Him results in frustration and anguish. Worry arises when people try to solve their problems on their own, without trusting in the divine plan. Lewis teaches us that by handing our worries over to God, we are not only demonstrating faith but also living in accordance with the purpose for which we were created, to depend on our Creator. He also addresses in The Screwtape Letters how fear and ambition are two of the greatest traps for humans. In this work, we see a fictitious dialogue between two demons, where the elder teaches the younger to use worry, fear of the future, and an insatiable desire for success as ways to distance humans from God. According to Lewis, these emotions take the focus off divine care and place the person in a cycle of anxiety and self-sufficiency. He invites us to reflect on how excessive control and the attempt to achieve everything on our own can distance us from true inner peace. Lewis suggests that the path to peace lies in recognizing our limitations and trusting that God knows what is best for us. Instead of continually seeking solutions to our problems based on our own strength, Lewis encourages us to surrender to the divine will. A practical example of this would be someone struggling to balance work and family demands. Often, trying to control all situations leads to exhaustion. However, by trusting in God and allowing Him to guide their steps, this person begins to realize that some battles don't need to be fought alone. This brings a relief from worries and a sense of mental liberation. In his works, Lewis also emphasizes the importance of faith as an antidote to worry. He argues that when we trust in the divine plan, our anxieties lose their power over us. This doesn't mean that problems disappear, but that our perspective changes. Instead of seeing challenges as insurmountable obstacles, we begin to view them as opportunities to strengthen our faith. When we put our trust in God, we learn to deal with life's uncertainties with greater serenity. Faith teaches us to overcome anxieties, knowing that God is always in control. Another important lesson we can draw from Lewis's writings is that a worry-free life is a natural result of total surrender to God. When we accept that we cannot predict or control all aspects of our lives, we are freed from the burden of trying to solve everything on our own. This is something Lewis exemplifies throughout his writings, showing us how true peace comes from accepting dependence on God. Those who choose to live this way experience an inner peace that surpasses human understanding. Trust in the divine plan completely transforms how we face the day-to-day challenges. Lastly, Lewis reminds us that faith is not a shield that protects us from all problems, but rather a force that allows us to face them with courage and tranquility. He emphasizes that trust in God is the path to a worry-free life, where even in the most difficult storms, we can find peace and security. When we internalize this message, we begin to realize that dependence on God is not a weakness but a strength that empowers us to live fully and without fear of the future. Balance between prayer and action. The balance between prayer and action is a fundamental principle in the life of faith. Often, people believe that trusting in God means passively waiting for miracles, but this is not the biblical teaching. True trust in God involves both praying and acting. Prayer connects us to the divine will, giving us clarity and direction, but it is action that puts this trust into practice. When someone prays for a change in their life, this prayer must be followed by concrete steps toward a solution, always with the confidence that God is guiding each decision. A clear example of this is found in the book of James, where it is stated that faith without works is dead. This means that as powerful as prayer is, it must be accompanied by action. If someone is facing financial difficulties, for example, prayer can bring comfort and peace, but it is also necessary to seek practical ways to solve the problem, such as better organizing their budget, looking for new job opportunities, or learning about investments. Trusting in the divine plan does not mean standing still, waiting for God to do everything. God calls us to actively participate in the fulfillment of His purposes. This dynamic between prayer and action can be seen in many practical examples. Imagine a person praying for healing. While they pray, they also take the necessary steps to improve their health, consulting doctors, following treatments, and taking care of their body. Prayer provides the strength to face challenges, but action is necessary for the outcome to manifest. By trusting in God, this person knows that regardless of what happens, they are doing their part while allowing God to do His. This balance brings inner peace because the person knows they are not alone in the battle, but also understands that they have a role to play. Another important point is that prayer helps us discern the best actions to take. Many times, when we are worried, we may act impulsively, which can lead to wrong decisions. Prayer, in this context, acts as a filter, helping us align our actions with God's will. For example, if someone is praying for a new job opportunity, they should be attentive to the doors God opens, but they should also prepare properly by sending resumes, learning new skills, and staying vigilant for opportunities that arise. Prayer guides, and action materializes that guidance. The balance between prayer and action also prevents people from carrying the burden of their worries alone. When someone understands that they are doing everything they can in conjunction with prayer, it becomes much easier to trust that God will take care of what is beyond their control. This brings relief from worries because the person knows they are doing their part, and the rest is in God's hands. A good example of this is someone praying to improve their relationships. They can take the initiative to forgive, ask for forgiveness, or invest time in their loved ones, trusting that God will bless these efforts. Lastly, it is important to remember that prayer and action are not opposites but complementary. Both are essential to living a life of trust in God. When we pray and act according to our faith, we demonstrate that we believe in the divine plan and are willing to do our part to see it realized. This balance leads us to overcome anxieties and live more fully, knowing that we are in tune with God's will. The true path to inner peace lies in the combination of these two pillars: prayer that guides and action that accomplishes. Now that you've reached this point, ask yourself, are you ready to truly trust in God? Are you willing to hand over your worries and let Him guide your steps? Everything we've discussed so far will only make sense if you decide to put these teachings into practice. So, what are you waiting for to take that step of faith? Don't continue carrying alone the burdens that God has already offered to carry for you. Start today living a worry-free life, confident that the divine plan is in action, even if you don't see all the results yet. I would love to know how this content has helped you. If these words have touched your heart in any way, leave a comment thanking or share your prayer request. We will be praying for you and for all who are seeking transformation in their lives. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and activate notifications to continue receiving more reflections and teachings that will help you walk with more confidence and faith in God's plan.